Well, a bold claim has entered the economic conversation. It suggests that new, broad-based tariffs on imported goods could generate immense revenue for the federal government. The numbers put forward are staggering. One prominent projection, from the Penn-Wharton budget model, estimates these policies could raise over $5.2 trillion over the next 10 years. This calculation is based on conventional analysis, which primarily considers how businesses and consumers might react to price changes. The proponents of this plan argue that this massive influx of cash could be a game changer for the nation's finances. It could be used to fund significant income tax cuts, reduce the national deficit, support American industries. The core idea is presented with straightforward logic. Tariffs are taxes collected on goods as they enter the country. If the United States imports trillions of dollars worth of products each year, in theory, this money comes from foreign exporters who want access to the lucrative American market. This narrative is appealing because it appears to offer a solution to complex fiscal problems without placing new direct taxes on American citizens. The vision is one of financial strength, funded by other nations. However, this simple arithmetic has drawn considerable skepticism from a wide array of economists. They argue that the economy is not a static spreadsheet where numbers can be multiplied without consequence. Tariffs are a powerful economic tool that fundamentally alters behavior, prices, and relationships. These experts warn that the initial optimistic revenue projections fail to account for the full range of economic reactions. These reactions include changes in consumer spending, shifts in global trade patterns, and adjustments within domestic industries. The true net effect, they contend, is far more complicated and potentially much less beneficial than the headline numbers suggest. The debate, therefore, is not about whether tariffs can raise money. They certainly can, at least in the short term. The real question is about the net outcome. Will the revenue gains outweigh the economic costs that ripple through the economy? Fiscal year 2025 offered a glimpse of this, with customs duties soaring to $195 billion, a more than 250% increase over the previous year. Yet, even as this revenue flowed in, underlying economic indicators and legal challenges began to tell a more complex story. The promise of a trillion-dollar windfall faces a series of significant real-world tests that must be carefully examined. The most immediate and direct impact of a tariff is on prices. A tariff is a tax. Like most taxes, its cost is ultimately borne by someone. It is levied on the importer at the border, but that cost rarely stays with the importing company. Importers pass this new expense down the supply chain. Wholesalers, retailers, the end consumer. The person who buys the finished product at the store often pays the final price, now with the tariff included. It effectively functions as a national sales tax on imported goods. Let's consider a clear example. A popular smartphone manufactured abroad costs $500 to import. A 25% tariff means the importer pays an extra $125 to customs. To keep margins, the importer sells the phone to a distributor for more. The price rises again as it moves to retail. The consumer may now see a $625 price tag. One purchase is more expensive for a household. Multiply that across thousands of goods: clothing, electronics, food, car parts. And the impact on a family's budget is substantial. The effect disproportionately hits low and middle-income households. Wealthier families spend a smaller share of income on consumables. Lower-income families spend a larger share on necessities, many imported. Yale Budget Lab research shows this disparity. It estimates tariffs could cost the second lowest income tier about $1,700 per year. For the highest income decile, the cost is $8,100, but it's a smaller share of their income. The large revenue projections, such as the $5.2 trillion 10-year figure, rely on a critical assumption that import volumes remain relatively stable even after tariffs are imposed. This assumption is economically precarious. Basic economics: when the price of something goes up, people tend to buy less of it. This concept is known as price elasticity of demand. If tariffs make imported goods significantly more expensive, consumers and businesses reduce their purchases. This can happen in several ways: choosing a cheaper domestic alternative, or simply forgoing a purchase altogether. The formula for calculating tariff revenue is simple. Revenue equals the tariff rate multiplied by the total value of imported goods. If the tariff rate increases but the value of imports falls sharply in response, the resulting revenue could be much lower than anticipated. For example, if the U.S. imports $100 billion of a product and imposes a 25% tariff, a static projection predicts $25 billion in revenue. But if imports fall to just $60 billion, the actual revenue collected would only be $15 billion, a full 40% less than the initial estimate. The higher the tariff rate, the stronger the incentive for importers to find alternatives, and this dynamic is not just theoretical. Companies that rely on imported materials will actively seek to avoid the higher costs. Trade is not a one-way transaction. It is a complex web of international relationships built on mutual exchange. When one country imposes tariffs on another, it is rare for the affected nation to simply absorb the economic impact without responding. The most common and predictable reaction is retaliation. If the United States places high tariffs on goods from China, Europe, Mexico, the governments of those countries are very likely to impose their own tariffs on goods they import from the United States. This sets off a tit-for-tat cycle known as a trade war, where escalating barriers to trade harm both economies. This retaliatory action directly hurts American exporters. U.S. industries that are highly competitive on the global stage, such as agriculture, aerospace technology, suddenly find their products more expensive in key foreign markets. Modern manufacturing is a global endeavor. Very few complex products are made entirely from scratch in a single country. Instead, companies operate intricate global supply chains, components, raw materials, specialized labor. An automobile assembled in a factory in Michigan might use a transmission from Japan, an engine block from Mexico, semiconductors from Taiwan. These supply chains have been optimized over decades to maximize efficiency and minimize costs, allowing companies to offer competitive prices to consumers. Beyond the economic headwinds, the projected tariff revenue faces a significant and immediate threat from the legal system. The authority of the executive branch to impose tariffs is not unlimited and is defined by specific laws passed by Congress. A substantial portion of the new tariffs enacted in 2025 were implemented under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, a law that grants the president broad authority to regulate commerce in response to a national emergency. However, the use of this act to impose sweeping tariffs has been contentious and subject to legal challenges. These challenges have already found success in the lower courts. The U.S. Court of International Trade, a specialized federal court that hears cases involving trade and customs laws, ruled that the majority of the new IEEPA-based tariffs were illegal. That decision was subsequently upheld by a federal appeals court. While these rulings were being appealed to the Supreme Court, the tariffs remained in effect, and the government continued to collect the revenue. This created a precarious situation. The Treasury was collecting billions of dollars from a policy that the judiciary had declared unlawful. This legal uncertainty casts a long shadow over the long-term revenue projections. The debate over the tariff trillion trap is a classic case of simple math colliding with complex economic reality. The claim that tariffs can generate trillions of dollars in new revenue is arithmetically plausible on its surface. Multiplying a significant tariff rate by the current volume of U.S. imports indeed produces a very large number. This has led to bold promises of tax cuts, deficit reduction, direct payments to citizens. However, this straightforward calculation overlooks the dynamic and interconnected nature of the global economy, where actions inevitably trigger reactions that can undermine the original goal. The economic counterarguments are substantial and well supported by mainstream economic theory and evidence. First, tariffs are largely paid by domestic consumers through higher prices, placing a regressive burden on households. Second, these higher prices reduce demand for imported goods,